I thought I'd call this video "And for Christ's Sake." And for Christ's sake, who is Jesus to most people? And how did they meet him? And is he in just a book? A book. A two-dimensional copy of such a multi-dimensional thing. And I'll tell you, I met Jesus. I was put on opiates from the modern healthcare system, fentanyl, Percocet, and other things. I was stuck on them for 9 years. I wanted to get off. The healthcare system would offer me Suboxone, but recommended I not get off of them. So in my utter pulverization, because for years I was sick on these things, and I wasn't living a healthy life, I went off them on my own at home, just doing my own research on the computer, without the help of the healthcare system. And this is when I found out who Jesus was, who he is and who he isn't. It's not this long melodramatic saga of a story of reading the Bible every day. No, the Bible is a template for the real thing. Once you see the template, you start to grow in the real thing, but the template's still just the template. And it's there for a reason. It serves a purpose. But people too often put too much attention in the template and not in the active living Word of God, which is inside of you. And how would I know that? Well, getting off of fentanyl after years and years and years, about 8 years, and Percocet and Vicodin, getting off all of that, they had me on Lyrica, and I was on a couple doses of Valium a day. I got off all of it, and I did it rapidly. I mean, I think I started in May and stopped in July, and then continued to remove medications. And after that summer, I mean, that was the summer of my awakening. That was the summer when my eyes were opened, when the veil was parted, and I began to see what is and what isn't, and it came at a price, okay? I had to be stripped down through my trial. I had to be stripped bare, brought to a death without dying, in order to receive this gift, which is already inside of me, but we're in our own way here on earth. And that's another thing about the written Word of God. It gets in your own way. The human can't wrap its head around something like God. We can't. Agape, we can't wrap our head around it. So to try to wrap your head around His Word and to be in it every day, you get stuck in a loop where you're thinking about these deep concepts, and we're not supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to be growing as children. And when you're growing as children, you're keeping it authentic. And most people choose conformity, and they're all reading the written Word of God every day. Now, some people may be called to do it because they have a certain mission, okay? But everybody's doing it, and that's why we have so many cults on earth, okay? The Word of God is very powerful, and the ability for man to wrap its head around it humbly and lead a normal life could be difficult unless you're ordained by God Himself. And we're supposed to grow as little children. And that means being authentic, not conformed. So that means I don't have anything to do with this modern church. I try to. There's no, and Catholicism is what I was raised in, okay? And I was always after Jesus since a little child. I thought I'd, in my own awkward thinking as a youngster, use the Catholic Church as a template for my relationship, and it just don't work that way. I was guided out of the Catholic Church. I understand that, it is way off in left field, Not to say there aren't people wandering through, but it is not the truth. And neither are these Protestant churches or anything either. I just realized they're extensions of the same thing. They're doing the same thing the Catholics are doing. They're just doing their own things. And you see, it bears a different fruit, because you're not growing like a child. You're growing like a Pharisee. And instead of taking the written Word after you read it once, or You know, some people don't read it at all. Some people were brought up in times where they were told not to, and for certain historical, cultural reasons, they didn't. They just believed. They heard it and believed, and that's all we're responsible to do, and to keep it simple so we could let the Spirit flow through us, because we get in our own way, we complicate it. And we what if? I mean, we're a weak human form. And you know, when you're being in this world and you're reading the Word of God every day, you'll get stuck in a loop. Okay, you'll become ritualistic, you'll become black and white in your thinking, and you'll fall right into the conformity of the modern day church, which the Lord for these times has a lot to say about. The Lord has a lot to say about, not me. The Lord has a lot to say, like, I vomit you out of my mouth. Like, those are some harsh words. You know, and so that means you may have to walk alone. That means you may have to go with your heart. That means you may have to depart from the church when it, you know, it's not really the church. It's kind of the way it manifests in, you know, people's lack of understanding. Okay? And I had to suffer for years in order to be stripped down to this. But the suffering equipped me with knowledge and wisdom. So it's all God's school. You know, I never made it through college or anything. I never had a normal life growing up here in America, as most did, for reasons I won't get into now. But it's made my path had to be hard. And now I understand why. I had to be destroyed. And you could tell who's been destroyed and who's not, you know. And so it makes your walk and your journey unique. It makes it different. And, you know, you're not touting yourself up, but you're understanding how God works and what He does. So I thought I'd get on here and give a little message to be authentic for Christ's sake. To be as a child for Christ's sake. Let's talk about what it means to be a child. I mean, as a child, obviously, when you remove the sexual desire element, you become more the child. And when I was brought through this stripping down process 10 years ago in 2014, everything was taken away like overnight. Strongholds and certain addictions and certain ways of thinking. I mean, they were just destroyed overnight. The TV was unplugged, never to be really plugged in again. You know, cable satellite was removed. It just happened on its own. I didn't have to think about it. I wasn't trying. There were certain things I just never did again. And that includes certain lifestyle things like wearing hair gel and colognes and jewelry and collecting watches. And all of that was offensive all of a sudden. All of that was so counterproductive. Fluoride toothpaste was brought to mind. And this wasn't by the outside world. This wasn't by me reading the Bible. This was by the living Word of God within. And for the first year of my life in 2015, I got the gift of celibacy and seed retention. And for 10 years, I've been practicing seed retention. And then in 2016, I began to run. Now, I played 2 years of football in an elementary school, 5 years of soccer. But, you know, I became up to 309 pounds by the year 2005. You know, I had to lose that. You know, I had to get my health back on track. And I had to be brought through pain and suffering to certain awarenesses and certain truths. So what am I getting at here is to keep it real for Christ's sake and understand that the Spirit works within you and that the written Word of God is valuable, but it's kind of like looking in a mirror. If you look in the mirror too long, you'll stay in the mirror, you know? And I always compare it to the book you get with your car. Of course, you want to read the book you get with your car, right? It explains everything about that car. Explains the model, the make, explains where it was made, and how to fix everything on it and what to do and what not to do. But then you got to put the book back in the glove compartment or wherever you keep it, and you got to get behind the wheel of the car without the book. And you got to drive it, and you got to get life experience. And this is how you become intimately aware of the Spirit within you. And it's just you becoming self-aware that you're connected to God already, that you were born into blindness, and that you have to be reborn again into the idea and knowing of who God is and isn't. And once you know this, you know, the religious systems, they become threatening, because here you are being born again as a child, and they're not behaving like children. They're behaving like Pharisees. They're trying to control everything. They're trying to render Jesus into their image. And, you know, I've met a lot of this younger generation, very lovely people, but they're in the witchcraft. And they're in the witchcraft because they went to these churches, and they're very educated people. You know, they understand a lot about the Spirit. They're very smart, and they're empathetic. And they're into witchcraft because they went to these churches, and they're so smart and beyond their years, maybe like you would say an old soul, that they know better, that there's no truth there. And I've intercepted this a lot. So for Christ's sake, keep it real. Don't be black and white in your thinking. Don't be as the Pharisee was the Pharisee. Do this, do that, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is evil. And have nothing to do with this world and its affairs. When I was born again, I used to be a political activist. I never voted again. Never got away from reading the paper. I simply understand that these things get in the way of my connection. And you can't understand that until you're destroyed and brought to a new understanding. And suffering is the key that unlocks that door. And I mean, it could be lengthy. It could be years. And it could be a dark night of the soul. It could be 2 dark nights of the soul. So, and these things are meant to manifest and grow your soul into salvation. They aren't meant to punish you. If you go to a church, they'll make you think you're getting punished or you're doing something wrong. See, there's so many ways of poisonous thinking that go on in these places, though they have good intentions. And before I go, so if you're somebody that's down and out as a believer and you don't fit in these places, good. Go on your own. Don't feel like it's you. Don't feel like you have to fit in these places. Don't feel that because you're not interested in reading the Word of God every day and picking a version that's the only version and all that small-minded thinking. Don't think that you're abnormal. Don't think you're being led away from that stuff. So don't fight it, okay? And God has a plan for you. You people out there that I'm a loner. You know, I have a very small inner circle and no family. And Christ has taken care of my every need. And I'm weak and vulnerable in certain areas. And it's been quite a hike over the 10 years. So little children, I want to mention this. Little children just trust. Little children don't really want. Little children could go without and go within their imagination. Not having money, not having even toys, they could have fun. And see, it's because they're at the connection with God. Little children aren't interested in sex or desire in those areas. That changes your whole resonant frequency of your aura. When you don't want, when you're releasing your said or what right and desire in that area of life, when you're releasing that to God and willing to say, unless you put somebody in my life, I'm not going to have an expectation of this. Your energy changes. You become more childlike. And the Spirit's taken me down, fasting and everything. But it happens on its own. It doesn't happen because I felt I had to fast for world peace or any. It happens in its time and season, So for Christ's sake, keep it real. And with that, Got 15 minutes. Have a nice day.